Hello, everyone. Welcome to Black Nerds Matter. We're diving in deep today with Milan Foston, a lawyer, conservation leader, and champion of blue economy, aquaculture, and diversity in marine science. Known affectionately as the Coral Doctor, Milan's path spans civil litigation, environmental law, scuba diving adventures, and her board role at Aquatic Futures Foundation, who I'm excited to hear more about Aquatic Futures. With expertise in policy, law, and marine ecosystems, she's a fierce advocate for inclusive ocean practices, aquaculture development, and coastal community protection. She's also a proud scuba diver, embracing mermaid-like curiosity beneath the waves and an outspoken voice on why representation matters. Today, we'll explore her work with Aquatic Futures, her love for the ocean, and the nerd passions fueling her drive for justice and conservation. Milan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And I love that breakdown. Can I get a copy of that so I can use that going forward? That was like such a great summary of everything I'm about. Wow, thank you. I'm really happy
Yeah.
to be here.
Yeah, we do our homework beforehand, so we want you to make sure you have a great time and you're able to say all the things you want to. So you're a yapper, so we'll get you everything you want to go.
Sounds good.
Okay, yeah. So the first thing I wanted to dive into is your moniker and identity. So the Coral Doctor is a powerful nickname. How'd that come about and what does it mean to you?
So I discovered this name. I was kind of given this name in a sense. And it was January 2019. I was in my second year of law school, I believe it was. Yeah, because I graduated in 2020. And I was really excited because I had been posting my aquarium on social media. And I guess to roll this back a little bit, so the aquarium hobby traditionally was like an anonymous thing online. You would see profiles of tanks, but you never really saw the person behind it. There were a few YouTubers that were known just in terms of giving advice and like aquarium care and maintenance and like growing coral and reefing. But as far as like Instagram and like other platforms went, you just saw like the tank. And I thought that that was a really cool time to come in because people who are aquarium hobbyists, they weren't worried about you at all as a person. They just want to see what type of tank you have, like what your setup is, right? And so like that alone is like nerdy itself. So so pretty much like I decided to start posting footage of my aquarium online. It was anonymous initially, and I would just put like calming lo-fi music, jazz music to some of my really old videos. And I just felt like it was just an escape sort of thing, like just some like ASMR vibes. So eventually, uh, people started getting comfortable with taking selfies in front of their tanks. And not everyone did it, but like a small percentage of people started to. So you kind of got to see who was behind some of these awesome tanks that we've been following each other, for years online. And the other thing that the aquarium hobby did was they had a sticker trade. And I haven't seen too many people discuss it lately in recent years, but it was a big deal where people would have their logo, the name of their tank. And again, this was like an anonymous time. They would literally just mail you a sticker that represented something about their tank or their logo or whatever. So once I started getting into the aquarium space online, I realized, hey, I need a logo, I need a sticker, and I really need to like figure out my name. At the same time, um, I had been recently introduced into saltwater as of 2017 because I had only done freshwater tanks pretty much my whole life. And so that maintenance guy who set it up for me actually grew coral as like a side hobby or business for himself. So he started bringing me pieces of coral and I was like really confused because like I had never known that you could have coral in your own home aquarium. When I thought of coral, I just thought of reefs in the open ocean, not in your home setup, right?
Hmm.
So when I realized that people grew coral and he was one of them and I got to see some of the stages of his coral growth, I realized like, hey, there has to be a way in which we can combat this whole declining reef crisis if we're able to grow this on land. And the biggest question, just because I was ignorant at the time and not fully versed in what was going on, I just felt like we shouldn't have a coral crisis if we can grow it this easy where like the average Joe Schmo can literally grow coral in his garage. Like, why is this a coral crisis? Imagine real resources putting this all together. So, once I started having those questions come up, that's when I started doing some research and digging deep and taking some basic like marine bio courses and things just to get a better understanding of what was actually going on in our oceans. And so that's when I realized that I wanted to uh, basically do my part in trying to combat the climate crisis with our ocean temperatures rising, which is essentially what's the cause of like our declining ecosystems in our waters, right? With the oceans getting warmer and them becoming more acidic, and then corals being unable to adapt, and other like skeletal marine life being unable to basically adapt or grow because of the conditions. So I just felt like we need a backup plan, because if our oceans continue to get warmer, then we need to figure out another land based option where we can grow all of these inhabitants and species so that we can at least preserve them to some degree instead of just watching them slowly go extinct. So that's basically what prompted me wanting to start a mission in trying to find ways to address this on the West Coast. Primarily, I've seen people do this around, other island nations around the East Coast, like in Florida, but like
Hmm.
not in Southern California. I hadn't really seen too many activists out here really trying to do something. So one day I was at the beach with one of my really good friends, and we were going through different names of like, well, what should I be called? Or like, if I do a nonprofit, like, what should the nonprofit be called? So we're like going through all these different variations, like Coral Queen, Coral Lawyer, Coral this, Coral that. And the problem was, I couldn't call myself a coral lawyer because I wasn't a lawyer yet. And you can actually get in trouble for that. So I had to figure out, well, what
Wow.
can I technically qualify as, And so since I was about to receive my JD, like my Juris Doctorate. I'm like, technically, we're doctors of law, even though we don't really go by the term doctor. But in this case, just because it's like a different niche, a different field, a different area, I think that's just like the safest thing to call myself, because I don't want to start representing myself as a lawyer when I haven't taken the bar yet. So that's honestly a
Hmm.
long story to like kind of show how I got there, but to also give you some backstory into like why I felt like I needed to brand myself in that space instead of just like, I don't know, having like a whatever username or just for online purposes. I wanted it to actually go somewhere.
Yeah, you didn't want to be Milan underscore 23 on Instagram, and
Yeah.
that was it, huh?
Yeah. And because I knew I wanted to grow coral to combat the difference, it's like, well, what's like a healing way? What's like a resolution to this? So like that's how we came up with Coral Doctor. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I still have the video because I remember being at the beach and we're like, it's this date, this time. I'm with my friend and we came up with Coral Doctor. Let's see where it goes. And yeah, that was I believe 2019 when I branded myself. So the fact that it's been this many years and now I'm stuck with it, here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was thinking about how you're talking about coral and growing them like outside of their environment because of how harsh it is. It makes me think a lot to stuff that's happening with zoos, for instance, when they take endangered species. So all these random zoos in America, we have these panda projects where they're trying to breed them together, all these different things. So it made me think a bit like that. I never thought of that in a marine space because when I usually think of marine organisms, I'm thinking big ones, the extinct or going extinct, like the vaquitas or sharks or whatever large one. And you can't necessarily recreate their environment anywhere. So thinking about that with coral is pretty interesting. That was pretty cool to hear about.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. And although I'm not a huge fan of zoos and things like that, I at least admire the ones that are out here really actually doing the work and trying to find sanctuaries, you know what I mean? And so I understand that places like that need continuous funding to run. Um, but yeah, no, I think I don't know. I think right now the sky's the limit. Even though it's really hard to like recreate the open ocean, I think that there's a lot of things that we could do on land if we just had the funding and the space, and not just like your average aquarium that you go to and you see a few things. I'm talking about like massive man-made temperature controlled locations, where we can at least like have enough wildlife in there where they may not be it may not be large enough for them to migrate and things, but enough where they are not in a stressed environment. That's really, really important to me that they have the right sort of setup and conditions. So, yeah, I think if we can be building theme parks and all sorts of things, we can easily, figure out a way to protect really important species that are literally like slowly, going extinct in front of our eyes. So, yeah.
So you mentioned your JD, and I know you do you do your mermaid stuff, which is really cool, as well as marine science. And with all that being together, I know it makes you very multifaceted, and we're gonna get to that in a bit. But I want to know about your background and your roots. Like, where did you grow up, and how did all these passions start? Like, where did the passion for law come from, and how has your family reacted to you going on this journey you're on now?
Okay, so I'm originally from San Diego, a really small town in northern San Diego. And I grew up in a two-parent household. I have an older sister, and we pretty much it felt to me like we had the perfect little family. Like we didn't really have any sort of like wild things going on. And so I had the privilege of growing up in a family where both sides of my family my mom and dad's side both valued education, higher education, and just finding ways to really make something of your life, of yourself, reaching for the stars. And so, growing up, I never felt limited. I literally felt like I could do anything. As far as how I fell into this passion, so my dad worked a lot. He was an urgent care pediatrician. He passed away when I was in the middle of undergrad. But as a kid, like we were constantly vacation. And my dad always said, make sure you do it all because you just don't know if and when you'll make it back. Right. So when we would go on family trips, we would always do snorkeling excursion, like a lot of island vacations, whether it's Hawaii, Bahamas. So that was like my first experience seeing like a real reef. I remember seeing an urchin for the first time in the Bahamas, seeing like a little like reef shark. I don't know what type it was because I was a kid, but it was just like, like a little baby shark like around the reef. Seeing coral for the first time, and I was just in love with it. Also, I was like a little girl, I was in love with a little mermaid. It's just something about being in water and just like being a mermaid and having like all the cool things like from one of my favorite movies, like seeing it in real life just really brought things home for me. So I had always had a passion for that. Now, to be funny though, my mom, because my dad worked a lot, she was like a full-time supportive spouse and housewife, and like had my sister and I very busy with things. My mom pretty much was like, I don't really want to have like any sort of hands-on pets that are going to require a lot of time and attention because it's going to fall on me as like the mom here, right? Because the kids are young, and I don't my mom didn't really want to take on too much responsibility. So we were not a household that grew up with like dogs and cats, but we did have birds, which were like my dad's prized possession, parrots that spoke. They were cool. And then and so then like growing up, it's like we want a pet, we want a pet. So like the only thing my mom would really like allow me to have was fish. Because I could take care of them. And this is like back in the day when people thought it was okay to keep goldfish in a bowl and, like no real filtration. You just change the water and stuff. So growing up, I had fish. The other cool thing was because we lived on a hill in San Diego, we had a fountain outside, and we always had like a lot of wildlife, whether it's coyotes, mountain lions, bunnies, scorpions, tarantulas, like you name it, it was somewhere outside. Growing up, like I was kind of not National Geographic, but like Discovery Channel, like, because we'd always be outside playing in the mud, seeing like crazy lizards and bugs and stuff. So we had frogs that would reproduce in my mom's fountain every year. And so we would have tadpoles that would suddenly appear in her fountain. So one year, I begged my mom to allow me to keep a tadpole and raise it and see, like, watch it grow. And she let me. So I had like a mini tank in my bathroom, and I watched it go from like a tadpole to a frog. And I grew him to like maybe like this big. And it was just so funny to like have him hopping around. He would always escape. He would like you'd find him in the kitchen, finding him in the hallway. And so eventually, like, I was able to release him. But just to kind of have that experience, I realized like I just love water based things. So as I continued to get older, I had goldfish, I had betta fish. My dad always wanted a saltwater tank, but he had always heard of the horror stories behind it and how hard they are to maintain. And he was just so busy, we never actually got around to it. So then I think I took a break from fish during college, but right after college, I had a beta fish. I named him Freddie, and I had him for like 5 years. Took good care of him. I would bring him home for the holidays. My mom gave him like a little stocking, little toys for his tank. Like it was so cute. So I've just always been in love with like water based things. I love fish. And yeah, like that's just kind of like how all of this started. And then as I got a little bit older, when in the middle of law school was when I decided to go saltwater. And that's when obviously things really took off for me in the ocean space and me learning more and wanting to do more.
Okay. Tell me what led you to law school.
Um, okay, so when I was younger, I was always debating with my parents over things like I want to wear makeup right away. I want to stay out late. I always had every excuse on why I needed to do something. And my family used to always say, you need to be a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And we only had one other lawyer in our family. Rest in peace, Lawrence Otis Graham. He was a well-known lawyer and author in New York. And I was always fascinated with his work and his accomplishments, and I've had always admired that. I also watched a lot of like Law and Order, so I like loved the prosecutors on the show, and I just loved how powerful they were. And so I always had a passion for that. At the same time, I was really into fashion. I thought that I wanted to own a day spa, so I was kind of all over the place, even though law was like not like the number one thing. It was something that I cared about. After my dad passed away, I think life just got a lot more serious for me. I'm like, okay, like, what am I going to do? Like, I really want to be in like a real profession. I don't want to spin my wheels. At that point, I had already been managing a day spa, not too far from me, and I did not like how it looked. It wasn't all like glitz and glam that you see online. It was actually like a lot of like retail, political, just like crazy things to have to deal with. And so I just felt like, I don't think working in a spa's for me. I don't think fashion's really for me. I think I need to pursue law. So pretty much, yeah. Another thing is that I was an Africana Studies undergraduate major, and so being introduced into the criminal justice system, mass incarceration issues, it really prompted me to want to become a lawyer to help be a criminal defense attorney for those who could not necessarily afford an amazing private attorney, but who also did not necessarily want to rely on a public defender.
Hmm.
Um, so that was initially what inspired me to go. And in the middle of that, I started working in law firms to get experience to make sure I really wanted to go. And then that's how I fell into civil litigation. And yeah, so that's how we got here.
Can you explain to me and the viewers what civil litigation is and what exactly you do with a JD and all these different legal things? I know nothing about legal work, and you're the first lawyer and
Mhm.
anyone legal I've talked to on this platform. So I'm really interested in that aspect. We'll get into the fun fish stuff for sure later, but I want to know more about this.
No problem. So civil litigation is like an area of law. Like there's different areas of law, like criminal, civil, immigration, family law, just to name a few. We actually have space law now, energy law. Like those are some of the new areas, which are really like niche areas and new. But basically, the way in which our legal system is built on in America is like a civil system. So civil litigation pretty much encompasses basic lawsuits, employment, personal injury, contractual issues, construction defect issues. So, pretty much, if you're suing somebody or an entity for something, 9 times out of 10, it's under civil. So, like a lot of the work that I do is personal injury, a lot of like vehicular incidents, wrongful death incidents, slip and fall incidents. There are some employment cases I've worked on, racial discrimination, religious discrimination, sexual harassment, things of that sort. I have done a little bit of landlord tenant work on the side. And yeah, I think like, and definitely a lot of construction defect, but that's like pretty easy work. So yeah, so it's really just like the litigation of it, just the fight of going back and forth with opposing counsel. And like for the most part, I do defense work. So I'm usually defending someone or something that's been sued. And so it's really just a matter of like evaluating the person suing's claim. Are they really injured? Did something really happen? And is what they're asking for reasonable? And if it's not, then we got to go back and forth and go through a whole process in terms of fighting it out, up until a trial. And if we still can't find a resolution, then it goes to trial. So that's civil litigation for you.
Okay, and how is the day to day for that? And then one other question I had alongside is when you have you ever had someone that you've worked with and you're like, oh man, they're 100% in the wrong? Do you have to convince yourself like they're not? Or how does that work? That's so interesting to me because I know nothing about law. All I see is divorce court and Judge Mathis and stuff on TV. So,
Right. Okay, so the first question is, what does every day look like? It's different. It's different by the day. For the most part, I would say I'm either working from home or I go into the office, and emails are usually nonstop. I'll get emails at 1 in the morning, 4 in the morning, sometimes 8 in the morning, 10 in the morning. So the kind of running joke for lawyers is like we never really are on vacation, and that's why when you see lawyer memes, like you see them like floating in a pool with their laptop still, like because it never really stops, right? Um, and that's not necessarily like opposing counsel like emailing you. It could be internal emails where like, okay, your boss is up at 4 because they're going to the gym at 5, so they're shooting this off to you to make sure it gets done while they're thinking about it. So like just because someone's emailing me at 4 in the morning does not mean I necessarily need to respond at 4 in the morning. But the notification, the sound, like all of that is still there. So like you're definitely aware someone's trying to contact you. So lots of notifications, lots of email, lots of paperwork, lots of reading. Um, I think like I would say a lot of civil is more so writing and reading, writing and paperwork than it is actual like arguing. And some of it is theatrical when you're getting testimony or like someone's lying, so you're trying to like walk them into a trap to like, admit things that they're trying to hide, things like that. So a lot of it is like strategic. So it's like some days are really crazy where like I might have two court appearances and then like another meeting, or I'm at a site inspection calling into court, but then as soon as I get off from court I got to go like see this place that burned down that people are suing over and have an expert there, and talk to the expert on like, hey, does this look like, yeah, like we're at fault here, or does this look like something else? And then have to come home and draft a report of what the expert said, send it to the client, and then also give my thoughts strategically, like, are we in trouble here or should we continue to fight this? So like it can look like anything. Some days are more relaxed than others. But usually like life gets more stressful when you get close to a trial date because you have deadlines where if things were already done, now you got to rush and get them all done and do a good job so you're not committing malpractice. And yeah, just like make sure you build your case in the event it really does go to trial, but only about 10% of cases actually make it to trial. Some people settle the first day of trial because they really don't want to go through a trial. Some people settle the day before, 2 days before. It just depends on how hungry the other side is to prove their point. To answer your other
interesting.
question of like yeah, like how do you navigate when you feel like the person you represent is somehow in the wrong? Did you say lying or just like guilt,
Just
like
wrong. Like,
liable? Or
yeah, yeah. Like they're sitting there like, oh, well, there's no way we could do this. Like, this is like they're suing us. It's like, well, I don't know what we can do. Like, our hands are tied. Like, I wonder how that goes.
I wouldn't say there's ever a moment where you say there's like absolutely not a single thing you can do. I think those are very rare situations that I would actually say are more on the criminal side of
Hmm.
things, for criminal cases. But for civil, we have an honest conversation. We say, hey, listen, like liability here is not disputed. This person, like your driver rear-ended this person, so they're like it's always going to be viewed that like your driver is at fault. But what we can do is try and mitigate the amount in which they're claiming. They're asking for $1 million. Maybe they only deserve 200,000, right? So like we're gonna be on the hook for something. So at this point, the fight is not gonna be over. Did it actually happen, or are we liable? The fight is over. How much should we really settle for in the end, or how much should they get? And of course, the opposing counsel is usually trained to reach for the stars. They're trained to get your entire policy amount that they can get. They want every dollar. And I don't knock them for that. Like why would you not ask for 10 times the amount? Because you never know. There are some lazy lawyers out there that will not really want to litigate a case and just tell their client, like, we got to pay it, just to avoid having to do more work. But a good lawyer will sit there and actually look at their medical bills, look at their treatment. You're asking for $2 million, but you saw a chiropractor 15 times. Like, do we even have like a medical doctor's opinion on this, not a chiropractor? Like, have you been evaluated? You need to now have our doctor see you. So that can rack up costs as well. So we have the whole discussion of, hey, liability is not disputed, but it might cost us, I don't know, like $80,000 to evaluate these claims and go through like the beginning stages of litigating this, or we can just simply offer them $1,000 and see if they take it. That way we're saving money, you paying us to fight something that we know, we're on the hook for. We might be able to come to a reasonable settlement without us racking up legal fees and costs for you. So that's what the conversation looks like. You have to have an honest conversation with your client, right or wrong. And it's not easy. And some clients don't like it, but for the most part, most clients understand.
That's really cool. It's cool to learn about something different and just how someone else's workday is because I have no idea how that goes with. I've done some contracting jobs, but I just do what they say. I don't go any further or try to argue whatever. So that's really cool. And so I'm wondering, with your experience with law, how did that translate when you were trying to learn about marine science and learn more about ocean advocacy? Did any of the things that you learned with law help you study for that or work towards that side of your career?
So to a degree, I would say. So right now, career rise, like my 9 to 5, which is it's really longer than that, but like my main job, like that takes up a lot of my time. And for the most part, that doesn't really touch on environmental stuff. I've had a couple of cases here that were like coastal disputes, who has access to what beach, like things like that. But and then also just like toxins, like pollutants, things that people are exposed to that could technically fall under some environmental stuff. But for the most part, my environmental interest in ocean and coastal law and policy has been more of like a research based thing, and also something, well, I won't get into specifics, but I am working and looking to draft and propose legislation within the next year to start implementing some protections. So that's where that kind of comes in. So a lot of like my pro bono work is more on like the research advocacy side versus like the civil side. But in law school, I was really interested in taking environmental law. Unfortunately, my law school didn't offer that as an elective. So I had to do a lot of self study and self research. So there's actually an area, ocean and coastal law and policy. They have textbooks. So I literally ordered the textbooks, and I have a copy. I should have brought one up here, but and started learning about the jurisdictions, how it all works with different countries, because when it comes to oceans, it's an international thing, so then you're getting into like shared water, shared jurisdictions. On average, how far does your jurisdiction extend out from your coastline? Who's responsible for what? What are issues that are going on in our oceans? What are ways that we can actually monitor and hold people accountable for like polluting or overfishing? Like who's really going to be responsible and front the cost of like having people out there? And how do you really regulate, behavior on the open ocean when it's an open ocean, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there's no random cameras out there like just monitoring, getting license plates and stuff like we have on the streets. So I think like just kind of understanding the civil side of jurisdiction and control over areas has helped me have a footing into the ocean and coastal law and policy space. But that's honestly a constantly changing thing because it really comes down to different countries being willing to have treaties and agreements to do the work. And as we know, every administration is different. Everyone's signing
Yeah.
something different. So it's a forever flowing, forever changing thing.
Okay. And I see
Yeah.
you've all these different hats that you're wearing, these different types of work you're interested in. I want to know how that ended up blending into your work with Aquatic Futures Foundation and how you got involved with that in the first place.
Okay. So, again, I have like a history of being in the water. I was swimming since the age of 2. Yes, 2. We have receipts. And so just being in the water, because people are like, what? 2? I'm like, yes, 2. So just being in the water at such an early age, I knew that I always wanted to dive, but I didn't start diving earlier, and I should have. I really regret not doing it sooner, because I never knew anyone who was an actual diver. Um, I didn't see anyone that looked like me. I didn't see women at all doing it. And the few people I saw doing it were like old white men when you would Google them. So it's like, I don't
Yeah.
even know where to start to even ask questions to do this. And so once I started getting on social media and getting to know in the aquarium space, I then was started posting like free diving content, like from Hawaii, from vacations, just for fun, just for pretty content, like, oh, ocean space. Cause this is before I really started getting into all the marine science stuff. Um, that's when Girls That Scuba reached out to me back in 2020. They wanted to highlight me on their page. And even though I wasn't a certified scuba diver, the fact that I was free diving and interested in ocean advocacy, they kind of like put me on the map a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, so I had a lot of people supporting me saying, "Oh, you got to dive, you got to dive." Then I got introduced into all of these women divers around the world. They have a huge platform on Facebook, and just even on Instagram. It's like tons of women support of women around the world who dive. So I was like, "Whoa, I need to do this." So then COVID hit, so then things were like shut down for a second. And then when things opened back up, I told my brother, he's my play brother, not my real brother, but I told my brother, I said, "We're getting certified. We have to do this. We have to go." And he was like, "I'm down." And we did that. So once I started diving, I was adding every single black, brown, even just whoever, scuba diver, like, especially if you're a woman, on my page. Cause I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to connect with these people. I want to know, I want to see more content. I want to see how people are doing. Like, I just like this is like a whole new world that I'm introduced to. And in diving, that put me on the map even more. And then I got to know Corey through social media because he was one of the black divers that I connected with. And we even had mutual friends from the surfing space. And so I was supposed to meet up with Corey a couple of times while he was living on Catalina, training scientific divers there. But our schedules just couldn't align. And then maybe like a year or two later, he reached out to me letting me know that he had started up Aquatic Futures Foundation. He was looking to build a board. He's trying to have a very unique, diverse, powerful board, people from different walks that can be very contributing to the cause, that care about the ocean space, that are involved in the ocean space. And he would love to have somebody with my background as part of it. So that's how I ended up joining the board for Aquatic Futures Foundation. And I was really, really happy about that because just to like segue or sidetrack a little bit, but when I first started diving, I reached out to my dive instructor via text. I hadn't met him yet. And I said, "Hey, like I'm a black woman. Here's my profile, just so you know who I am. I'm doing this because I really want to have representation of black women and black divers in this space. I think I could share this with like a lot of people that never thought that this was possible. And like, do you mind working with me to help document this experience so I can share it on my platform?" And he was so cool. He was like, "Yeah, like no problem, blah blah blah. Like we'll figure out a way to do it." So I'm like, "Okay, great." And so that was always a passion for mine. So like look, and then like several years into me being certified, that's when I came across Candace, who founded Deep Blue Dive Crew. And so I was so excited to have an LA based black and brown women's dive club out here. I'm like, this is what I've been waiting for, like finally, and it's on someone else's time and dime. So all I have to do is like show up and kumbaya and get content and hang out. I was like, finally, like a dream that I had back in 2021 is now coming to fruition in 2024. That's just awesome that like other people are on the same, path and wanting to get more people in the water who would never thought that they could have had this experience. So then fast forward, I think it was late 2024 was when um Corey, maybe it was earlier than that. Yeah, it was like summer of 2024. Like all of my times are kind of like shifted off a little bit. But then that's when
Hmm.
Corey was like talking to me about aquatic futures. I'm like, this is what I want to do. And we're at the nonprofit level. So we're going to be bringing in cohorts. I'm like, oh yeah, like this is it. So yeah, so to be a board member, to be present for meeting the students, training with the students, giving them a safe space to be themselves, a safe space to let us know how they're truly feeling, not without having to feel intimidated, is just part of like the dream. And so I'm just really really fortunate that like having my background and being able to like help the board navigate decisions, talk about legal principles, talk about different opportunities that we can have in our area while also being part of it is like exactly what I wanted to do all along. So I feel like I'm like living the dream right now.
That's sweet. I think it's really interesting just hearing your perspective on just diving in general. Want to see more black divers because I don't know if you've noticed, but I feel that different parts of the U.S. have very different, or even the world in general, have very different dive cultures, and it's just I think it can be very jarring when you go somewhere else and you don't see any divers like you or you don't do, or just people that behave like you at all.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Fortunately, like I think starting in this situation where like, I was like the only black diver in my class, the only one in the pool, I'm kind of used to being like the solo one. But I think where we're at now as a community internationally, I think there are so many more people that are willing to give it a chance and try it. And I think it just kind of is a trickle effect of like more black and brown people swimming, more people understanding like, like there's ways to prevent drowning, there's ways to like learn the basics so that this doesn't have to feel so scary or so far out of reach. And of course, there's always going to be like the one-off people that are just nasty and weird, for like whatever reasons they have. But like I think for the most part, I've had a very positive experience being on different dive boats, being around different racial makeups, religious makeups, even people who I don't even speak the same language, but we still understood each other and it was like still cool, like when I went to Hawaii, um, there was a guy, oh my gosh, I forgot which country he was from. It was a like Latin country. He didn't really speak a lick of English, but we were the only two divers for the manta ray dive, and he was just such a cool guy. I was able to communicate with him enough to like get his Instagram and send him his own video shots after that I got on the GoPro so that he could have some memories too. And I think that this is kind of like what it's all about, because I'm like, hey, I'm getting all this content for myself, but you don't have a camera. I'm like, how are you going to remember this? So I'm always thinking of the next person. So I think just kind of having that community care mindset, like really just kind of alleviates the nonsense that I think some people feel when they're like more anxious and unable to like, focus on others because they're like too worried about the dive or themselves or their gear or whatnot.
That's so interesting, yeah, your perspective, because when I started diving or getting really into scientific diving, it was with all like black and brown students, so that's what I'm used to. But when I ended up coming back to Florida to dive, because I was doing it in Maria with the diversity project UCLA, so that was awesome intro for me. When I came back to Florida, it's a whole bunch of it's like very macho scuba diving, like a lot of old like police officers and military guys. And I like to think of the diving I was doing in Maria almost as like soft girl diving. Like we're all diving, we're having fun, we're taking pictures together, taking cute pictures afterwards, and selfies underwater. Like it's a lot of fun. And I felt like it was just everyone was just enjoying it and having a good time. But when I came here, it was guys are getting out the water with all these rigs and all this crazy stuff, these rebreathers, all this stuff, and they're coming up saying, "Oh, hey, my air consumption was better than yours," or this and this and that, kind of like having like a pissing contest over diving. And I'm like, dude, this is supposed to be fun. Like, I don't understand why we're making this a competition. And that was something that was very interesting to me in seeing that. And I can't imagine if my first experience was here with like these like older white dudes who are all, oh, but I can talk through my mask and I have all this stuff. I'm like, we're in a 10-foot deep hole. We're not doing anything. Why do we need all this gear? Versus having it with black and brown people that looked like me, where we were really supporting each other. So it's just
Yeah.
interesting to see that.
So, it's funny that you bring that up because that's the vibes I have in the aquarium community. Like that's it's a very like mansplainer. I have the biggest tank. I have this like I mean at one point people were literally putting 300, 500 gallon tanks in their homes to like compete with like people on YouTube and social media like who has the best setup, who has this, who has that. It was
Yeah,
very very macho and it was to the point where like even on the aquarium side like I was looking for every black person that had an aquarium. I found one other black girl. I found like maybe two biracial girls that were here and there posting. And that's not to say black people don't have aquariums. We know they do, but in terms of
yeah, yeah.
that online presence. And then I found like a handful of black men that were doing it, which I love them dearly. Like I feel like we have like a little safe space, we're like, whatever. But it was like they even had to create like a women in reefing group. They had to create groups for women for to have visibility, trends for women in the aquarium hobby because it was so macho, so heavy. Like if you were to go on any sort of YouTube video, even mine, because I have one that went like mini viral a couple years ago about algae, like cleaning algae out of your tank. There's so many people in the comments that are like, well, you should have did this and you should have, just it's always like some like let me tell you why you're wrong and let me tell you why I'm right. I'm like, did you even watch the video? Like I fixed it. So like why are we even like voicing an opinion on like what I should or shouldn't have done? But also this is like 4 years old. So like what I don't even have that tank anymore. Like what are we doing? So yeah, I definitely understand. And I think out here when I go on, I think because I'm so used to um that culture, like even in law, like only 2% of black women are lawyers. You know what I mean? The fact of like there's just so like the field has been traditionally older white male controlled, so like I just think just growing up around white people, being in school with white people, being in fields with white people, like to me, um, I guess I'm just kind of like used to some of the energy at this point, so I don't even like pay it as much of mine. But I will say that like that experience with that you said you had in Florida was the main reason why it took me forever to get certified because it looked intimidating to me. All I saw were older white men with all this crazy gear. And I'm like, I just want to be like the little mermaid and vibe in the water and breathe. Like, why does it have to look like we're going to war? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, why do we have all of this? So it was intimidating just not understanding even how the gear worked and what these things were, and that's why I was really, really happy to come across Girls That Scuba and all of these other Black divers that are out here, like Zandy, Alana, um, Asia, Candace, like just a few to name to like off the top of my head, like women who've been doing this years before me. You know, and to see how comfortable they are, and they don't have 500 layers of gear and ammo,
Hmm.
whatever they need, underwater. Like they have like the most basic setups, and they're pretty, and they're having fun, and they're enjoying themselves. So like it doesn't have to be like that. Now there have been a few dive boat trips where I have kind of seen that like let me tell you, oh, like, but I also just kind of
Hmm.
realized that like a lot of these people that are offering advice, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's like you just need to be heard, and sometimes they're also nervous and trying to convince themselves that they're ready for this dive, so they feel like teaching
Yeah,
other
yeah.
people things is going to help, and like they're the main ones that have an issue. like so I just kind of learned that like people do a lot of talking for various reasons, and it's not always because they're trying to be rude and intimidating. It's because they're even trying to cope with their own anxiety of the situation. And I was recently on a dive where I saw that happen in real time where, the main person's trying to give advice to our students and did not inflate their BCD when they jumped in the water. So they pretty much just like sank and was like caught off guard. It's like, hey, like that's like step one. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm like, and
Yeah,
you're over
yeah,
here giving
yeah.
advice.
You said the
Going
rock
on,
is teaching
you know,
students, the rock that sinks to the bottom. That's
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So yeah, and I've also come to know that like even though some people kind of have that like aggressive demeanor, they actually end up being some of the coolest people. There was a lawyer on another boat I was on recently, and the captain was calling him like VIP, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, why is he important? The only reason why he was kind of important was because he was always sailing with them, so she just wanted to make sure that he had his own little space and area, despite all these people who come and go. And he actually there was someone on the boat that kind of was having like a stressful situation, not a medical one, but just like an anxiety driven one. and
hmm.
um and he basically like jumped in and was the main person, like, oh, I have heat packs, oh, let's get your boots off, oh, let's do this. Like the main person that was being treated like a king was like the main person that was like really trying to be helpful. So I think those situations also just help me not judge people like and worry about like weird things, because you just really never know who ends up being really cool and really supportive, even though you wouldn't necessarily think that that would be their personality type, at first, glance or communication. So yeah, sorry, I know that was a
Absolutely.
lot.
No, 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 that's good. Cause I have a buddy who was like he's one of the more macho divers. He's really cool too. And for me, it was very hard at the beginning when they're like, "Oh, well, try this stuff out. Try this gear. Let's rock this." And I was like, "Dude, I got my little jacket BCD that I rock with. I got my mask. Like, I don't need to go down there. I don't need to go down to 100. I don't need to stay down here. I don't need to do. I don't
Right.
want to do this drill. Like, I don't want to go to this cave to just go in this cave. If there's no sharks or fish around, I'm not interested." And then I ended up doing more stuff with them. Be like, okay,
Exactly.
this is pretty fun. This is pretty good. And I learned a lot about my own personal biases during that time for sure, because they ended up being really nice. But man, like I'm telling you, when I first got there, it was all these old cops and stuff. I said, dude, what happened to like the nice island girls, nice island black girls, and we're all diving together and having fun and eating coconut and pineapple after, like that was fun. We were kumbaya and all that stuff afterwards. And now I feel like I'm going in the Navy SEALs. I'm like, why do we have guns here? Why do we have spear guns? Why do we have camo wetsuits and all this? Like nobody's trying to get us. What's the point of all this right now? And I'm here with like my bright pink my bright pink rash guard and all these things. Like, hey guys, I'm ready to go. And they're like, you're going like that. I was like, yeah. I'm like, wow, you're a great
Yeah.
diver. I'm like, yeah, bro. I mean, I be having fun. I'm not out here trying to prove myself to other men. That's just not my jam.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak to like the man on man experience, but I have seen it in real time where somebody reached out to dive with somebody and then that person was like, well, you need to like answer these questions before you come out with me, like how much weight do you need in salt water versus fresh, and like how much, it was like all this weird calculations. I'm like, yeah, no, like, and I don't know. They were doing like specialty stuff, so I understand wanting to know who you're bringing out with you and like, are they actually
Hmm.
ready for something like this? But I do think that the delivery could have been a little bit more welcoming, especially when it's someone who looks like you that's just trying to get their foot in the door and have an initial
Hmm.
experience. But again, like we live and we learn, and we're all improving. So, but yeah, like it's definitely like wild out there for sure. But thankfully I can't recall any like wild times that I've experienced any sort of like weird direct backlash. I think everyone has been like very helpful and supporting in my journey so far. At least out on the water for sure.
Okay, that's awesome. We were talking a bit about aquatic futures and trailed off. I got excited about diving. That happens fairly frequently with me. But can you share a recent initiative or project that you guys have been working on that you're really particularly excited for or excited to have happen?
Oh man, I feel like we've done so much. So it was founded in 2024. So like this is like our first full year programming and it's gone extremely well. We just certified our first group of open water students. And
Sweet.
right now, Corey, yeah, it was, and those that was like so cool to be on the journey with them and in their training, pool trainings and ocean trainings, and getting to know them. Um, wonderful students. Right now, Corey just got through an advanced class. He's in the middle of doing rescue, and he's getting ready to start the side dive program. So I'm really, really excited to be part of that. I'm personally working on dive master stuff, so I'm excited to
Nice.
kind of like intertwine my stuff to be present. Yeah, so I can continue on my journey. And we've done, community sales for the Boys and Girls Club and really just the general public, people who've never been on a boat before. We took them out earlier in the winter for an educational sale during Black History Month. Um, we also partnered with the Los Angeles Maritime Institute for that. So that was really cool because they're always doing community sales. So to make pretty much a sale for us for the community was awesome. We partnered with the Los Angeles Yacht Club to host actually the event that you went to, and
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
there's a few more yacht clubs that have actually reached out to us, but we're kind of having to put them off till the fall because we're so busy with our dive schedule right now. And yeah, in the meantime, we've just been building community partnerships. I know Corey was out in Fiji doing the diversity project trainings, getting all of those students certified, various certifications. So that was really cool. So right now we're doing our applications for our second open water cohort. I believe they close in 15 or 16 days. So yeah, so I'm excited to see what the next group of students is going to be. And then following our completion of our side dive program, we will be sending students to the Bay Foundation to do volunteer diving or possibly have some sort of like work opportunities with them. So that's the programming right now, and there's a few more things that we have up our sleeve that we're trying to see if we can pull off by the end of the year, if not push to early next year. But we've been rocking and rolling nonstop, and it's pretty much become my life. So I'm like, if I'm not litigating, I'm doing aquatic feature stuff, and I absolutely love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So tell me about what you do for yourself to take care of yourself in the meantime, because you're doing all these things. You're doing the ocean conservation stuff. You're doing stuff for AFF, and then you're doing civil stuff. It's like, okay, I'm getting sued. Okay, I need to learn how to dive. Okay, I need you to fix. I need help with my tank. What do you do for yourself when you're not doing these things?
I don't have a whole lot of free time these days because I'm really involved in so much right now. Um, I almost want to say that the stuff I do for aquatic features and just any sort of ocean related work is stuff for myself, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like that is my escape. Yeah. So yeah, I think being able to go create, shoot content, edit the content, create it, like is really cool. Being somewhat of a content creator because it's like not really my main thing. has opened doors for me, invitations, places, requests for me to document stuff. Like I'm going tomorrow to an event to document, and I think it's going to be really cool for Women's Dive Day. So just really cool things that, yeah, I could have just shown up and been part of it, but I think it's really cool to be part of like the creation of the memory of it. So I think for me, resting, because I will definitely shut down for a week and just like rest, like and just do my 9 to 5, but just like I can't do anything else. I just need to catch up on sleep. I do that. Um, and other than just like physical maintenance, working out, um, watching what I eat, hanging out with friends. I always make time for friends. I'm just kind of like a work hard, play hard person. So like the play part just ends up being either water stuff or friend stuff or just like at home chilling. You know what I mean? And just kind of like
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
all my rest in. I don't really have a specific thing that I do. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I want to know about how you've been doing your content creation and recording videos because I'm looking to start recording my own videos, doing GoPro stuff underwater, and I want to know what kind of recommendations you have for somebody who's trying to do that. I want to do some B-roll videos where I'm recording stuff and talking over it because I can't stand sitting in front of a camera and reading a script. For this, it's fine because I'm interviewing, we're having a conversation, but just sitting there, hey, I'm Diedrich, I do X, Y, and Z. That's not my jam. So what kind of advice would you have for someone like me who's trying that out?
Um, okay, so I would definitely invest. Okay, so if you know you're going to be like putting out content for real, right? And this isn't just like a one-time thing, I would invest in a good camera. I've been using the GoPro 9, but I actually just upgraded this week to the I should like shout them out, but like a Insta 360 X5, the new one. So I'm
Oh
so
wow.
excited to try this out tomorrow. Yeah, it was an investment. It was a long time coming. I just kind of realized that I could be having just more editing options and slightly clearer footage and things like that. So like I've had fun with my GoPro. I want to be really careful with how I say this. I would just say for any camera that you're looking to get, go to their Instagram, look at the comments, and make sure that there aren't any comments that are alarming, where there's an issue with a ton of people not being able to reach customer service, or if there's any issues with people's cameras suddenly dying, because there are a lot of competing camera brands going on right now or that are out there right now. And I was going to go with one camera, but opted to go with this one because I saw some very alarming comments uh, that had been going on with a particular newer model of another camera. So I don't want to like name drop and like like create
Yeah,
an
yeah.
issue, but I would say definitely do your research. And then so that's as far as like purchasing the type of camera. And then as far as editing, I'm just the type of person that captures everything. I try not to make my videos longer than a minute at a time when I'm underwater, just because it's a lot to have to like scroll through and edit and remember like which part of the video, if it's like a 10-minute long thing, it's kind of like annoying to have to remember exactly where you want to start it and stop it.
Oh yeah.
And then also uploading is a lot faster. So I try to keep my videos relatively on the shorter side for the clips, since I do a lot of videos that are like clip based. And um, I think before I dive, right, I kind of have an idea of what I want to put out next. I already know in my head the general idea of like what content I'm going to put out after at my next dive that I have scheduled. However, it's subject to change. And, depending on what I see in there, or depending on if there's like a trending sound, or like there's another song that comes to mind before I'm actually ready to edit it, then it can change. But I usually go in every dive with an idea of like, okay, I want to get some shots this way. I want to get some shots that way. I want to get some shots talking underwater. We'll see. Now, as far as someone that just needs to do voiceover work, I just say get as stable as you can, like really nice footage, clips of it. And then when you go to record your B roll, or your voiceover for the B roll, get an idea of what you want to say. There have been times where I wrote out talking points. I think there was only one time I actually wrote out what I wanted to say because it was for an application for a program, so I had to address specific things, and I just didn't want to forget because it was too much. But I just make sure I'm in an environment that's sound, where like my I won't be echoing, where if I have to stop it, I kind of remember the tone of my voice so I can like kind of pick up where I left off. But I'm still learning too. So like I'm not some like voiceover pro, but I
Yeah.
also think the trick to it is also not overthinking it. I think a lot of people when they do voiceovers, they get like really weird about it, but honestly, the most successful voiceovers I've seen people have, they're just talking and they don't care what happens. Just like, yeah, I said this. Okay, we're moving on. So anyways, guys, like let me tell you about my day. Like here's this. Isn't that cute? Or, like like they'll just kind of like be themselves. So I think that that's very helpful too. So yeah, so it's kind of like go in with an idea of what you want to shoot, how you want to shoot it. Um, go in with an idea of like the sound. Like, do you want this to be like a happy, jolly sound, or do you want this to be more like aesthetic and calming, or is this a trending sound you want to try and do? And then when you get ready to do a voice recording, just kind of have an idea like, hey, do I really even want to speak over this, or do I just do clips and captions, or should I just talk for a little bit and then just like let the captions go, just kind of see what you want it to kind of be. And I think it depends on what you're filming and what you want the audience to be. Like I think the last voiceover I did was the mermaid sir, and I didn't even want to speak over that one, but I just did it because I'm sure people were gonna have some questions. So I'm like, let me just like say what we did and then be done. So I just try not to overthink it.
Okay, from one content creator to another, I really appreciate that because I've just been trying to move into a different space. So I'm trying different stuff out, whatever the case may be. But I had always had the stigma in my own mind of I didn't want to record stuff because I wanted to remember it. And there's so many times where I'd have people with me who love recording stuff. They record me doing stuff, and that was enough. But I'm to the point now where it's like I'm like I got to start recording some stuff on my own because I'm not always going to be with someone. I do a lot of stuff on my own when I'm doing research, whatever the case may be, and I want to for people to see how the process goes. So if they're interested in it, I can show them the very specifics. I can't always have my friends be around with their GoPros. I got to get my own stuff. So it's just that's been something I've been
Exactly.
thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can talk more about cameras and stuff after this, but I would just say go for it. And I also say just don't be afraid to show yourself. I think a lot of people these days like to kind of know like, well, who's like feeding this message? Like who's behind this? Or like what do they look like doing this? Like people are really curious when it comes to like diving and underwater stuff. So even though you might be interested in B-roll, definitely don't be afraid to throw a few clips of yourself in there because I think that people would definitely appreciate that, especially like being a representative of you know your community and all that.
Oh, cool. All right, we have one last question before we get off. So where do you hope to see yourself and see your work going in the next 5 to 10 years? Is there any dream projects in aquaculture, reef restoration, or policy, even stuff with AFF that you're looking forward to down the pipeline?
In 10 years I would love to see AFF international. I feel like we're already almost there anyway, but I would love it to have an international presence where we have groups around the world doing our work, and continuing our work. I would love to have a I'm kind of nervous putting my hopes and dreams out there. I don't want to like jinx it, but I would love to have my own lab out here doing coral work and coral research here on the West Coast. I would love to facilitate a space in that lab for young researchers to come, like do their research, and I'll be able to provide them corals from all over the world, to make that happen. Policy wise, kind of, yeah. So I would love to see more environmental protections for sure. I think we've definitely gone a little bit backwards this past year with uh different administration decisions, but I would love to see stronger protections for climate, addressing the climate crisis, renewable energy, um ocean protections, aquarium regulations. Those are the things that I would like to be part of the change and making happen, and being able to use like my legal background in facilitating that, and being part of that and advocating for that. That's kind of really like the next largest accomplishment that I think I'm going to try and take on. So we'll see what happens. But I definitely have a lot of different ideas in mind, even at the local level, of things that we can do to just try and make a difference. You know, we won't be able to cure everything, but I think that there's a few things that we can get in place that can get the ball rolling. And from a local level, it's kind of easier to expand. And with California being a very progressive state, we can hopefully influence other states, you know, to implement some of the same policies as well. So, like, that's pretty much like a long term goal of mine, is to actually initiate change on a legal level.
Okay, sweet. Thank you so much for joining the show and taking a break from your very busy schedule to make time for us. I really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone listening is getting a lot from this and your unique experience. I know I am. So, again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. It was an honor. And I'm excited to see where you go off with what's next for you and your content creation and this podcast. Like, I'm really, really excited for you. So thank you so much for wanting me to be here.
Course. All right, guys. Thank you again. This is Milan Foston, Coral Doctor. You see her at on the on the name tag right there. So follow her and see what she's up to in Aquatic Futures Foundation. And with all that, Black Nerds Matter is out. Peace.